December 11th, 1944. The Eagle's Nest. 3 men stood against cold concrete, hands raised in humiliation. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Field Marshal Walter Model, General Hasso von Manteuffel. The 3 most powerful commanders of the German Western Front reduced to this. SS guards tore through their briefcases like scavengers, patted them down like common criminals, stripped them of their sidearms. These were Prussian aristocrats who valued honor above life itself, and now political thugs were putting hands on them. The air was thick, heavy with silent rage. Inside the bunker, Adolf Hitler trembled as he revealed his master plan. Operation Watch on the Rhine, the Battle of the Bulge. 200,000 German soldiers would smash through the Ardennes and capture Antwerp. Victory, he promised, was certain. The Americans, Hitler sneered, are cowboys, playboys. They'll panic at the first shot. They'll run like they did at Kasserine Pass. Von Manteuffel said nothing. But behind his eyes, doubt flickered. He had fought the Americans. He knew they were not cowboys. But there was something else. Something the German High Command had gotten catastrophically wrong. Something that would only surface decades later. For decades, we believed the specific story. A story the German generals themselves had written. In their memoirs and interviews, they claimed one thing. They had feared George Patton from the very beginning. They tracked his every move from North Africa to Normandy. He was the one man, they said, who kept them awake at night. It was compelling. It flattered the Americans. It saved German pride. But then, historians cracked open the actual intelligence files from 1944. Documents written while bullets still flew, while blood still ran hot, and they found something shocking. The files were empty. February 1944. 4 months before D-Day. German intelligence prepared detailed profiles on every senior Allied commander expected to lead the invasion. Eisenhower, Montgomery, Bradley. Omar Bradley's file was thorough. Montgomery's was exhaustive. Patton's file did not exist. No obsession. No fear. Until August 1944, there was barely a mention. The German generals hadn't been tracking Patton. They had been ignoring him. So how did the man they ignored become the man they claimed to fear most? And if they weren't watching Patton, who were they actually watching? The answers emerged from post-war interrogations. American Army historians and British military writer B.H. Littleheart spent years interviewing captured German generals. What those generals revealed was far more complicated than the legend they'd been selling. One question haunted every interrogation: who among the Allied commanders truly concerned you? The answers would shatter myths and reveal the terrifying reality of what actually kept the Wehrmacht awake at night. Of all the Allied commanders, only one earned genuine contempt from German generals. Mark Clark, commander of the Fifth Army in Italy, tall, photogenic, obsessed with his own image. He kept a personal public relations staff, positioned photographers to capture his best angles. He believed destiny had chosen him for greatness. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring commanded German forces in Italy. After the war, his assessment of Clark dripped with barely concealed disdain. Clark was predictable, Kesselring told interrogators, because he was vain. Clark would always choose the option that generated the best headlines. Military logic? Secondary to publicity. The proof came at Anzio, May 1944. Clark's forces had broken out of the beachhead. The German 10th Army was retreating north, exposed, vulnerable, bleeding. Clark had one chance: cut them off. Destroy an entire German army in one decisive blow. Instead, Clark turned his forces toward Rome. He wanted to be the liberator of the First Axis capital. He wanted the photographs, the headlines, the glory. He let the German 10th Army escape to fight another day. The cost of that vanity? While Clark posed for photos in the Colosseum, American infantrymen were still dying in the mud of northern Italy, fighting the very same German units Clark had failed to trap. The photos were beautiful. The price was paid in blood. General Siegfried Westphal, Kesselring's chief of staff, considered Clark one of Germany's greatest assets in Italy, not because of his skill, but because his vanity made him predictable. When you knew Clark wanted glory more than victory, you knew exactly what he would do. If Clark was predictable because of vanity, Bernard Montgomery was predictable because of caution. Montgomery commanded the British 21st Army Group, Britain's greatest military hero, the man who defeated Rommel at El Alamein, and German generals could set their watches by him. Rundstedt's assessment was clinical. Montgomery was very systematic. He would never attack until he had assembled overwhelming force. That approach worked, if you had time. But it also meant the Germans always knew when the attack was coming. General Gunther Blumentritt demonstrated Montgomery's methods during his interrogation. He stood up, walked across the room in slow, deliberate steps, one foot carefully placed before the other. No sudden movements. No risks. That, Blumentritt said, was how Montgomery moved. They knew his formula. He required at least 2-to-1 superiority in men, 4-to-1 in tanks. He would bombard for days before advancing. He would stop at nightfall and consolidate rather than push through. This made him beatable, not through superior force, but through superior speed. Operation Market Garden was the single time Montgomery abandoned caution. A bold airborne assault to capture bridges across the Rhine. Audacious. Aggressive. Everything Montgomery usually was also a catastrophic failure. 17,000 Allied casualties. The British 1st Airborne Division destroyed. For the paratroopers isolated at Arnhem, it was a nightmare. They'd been dropped a bridge too far. Sacrificed on the altar of a cautious general trying to prove he could be bold. The irony wasn't lost on German commanders. The one time Montgomery tried to act like Patton, he proved why he should have stayed cautious. Not all British commanders earned German disdain. Harold Alexander commanded the 5th Army Group in Italy. Where Montgomery was rigid, Alexander was flexible. Where Montgomery demanded control, Alexander managed. Kesselring held Alexander in genuine respect. Called him a gentleman, meant as the highest professional compliment. Alexander commanded what Kesselring called a mongrel army. Americans, British, Canadians, Free French, Poles, Indians, Brazilians, New Zealanders. Dozens of nationalities. Different equipment. Different doctrines, different languages. Holding them together required diplomacy Montgomery never possessed. Alexander understood coalition warfare, Kesselring observed. He didn't demand everyone fight his way. He found ways to use each force's strengths. This made Alexander harder to predict. He wasn't wedded to a single doctrine, he adapted. He let subordinate commanders exercise initiative. It was rare in the brutality of World War II enemy commanders looking across battle lines and seeing a reflection of their own professional code. They wanted to kill Alexander's army, but they would salute the man leading it. Then there was Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander. He controlled more military power than any general in history. German generals did not consider him a general at all. Rundstedt's assessment was blunt. Eisenhower was a coordinator, not a commander, a political figure who managed the alliance, not a soldier who understood battle. German generals recognized that holding the Allied coalition together was genuinely difficult. But what Eisenhower lacked, in their eyes, was killer instinct. Von Manteuffel told interrogators that Eisenhower's broad front strategy was wrong. Instead of concentrating overwhelming force at a single point, Eisenhower advanced everywhere simultaneously. This prevented the Allies from achieving decisive breakthrough. Rundstedt agreed. The best course would have been to concentrate a powerful striking force and break through to the Ruhr. Such a breakthrough would have torn our weak front to pieces and ended the war in autumn 1944. Instead, Eisenhower spread his forces thin, kept everyone advancing, kept everyone happy, and gave Germany 6 more months to fight. Omar Bradley commanded the largest American force in Europe, 12th Army Group, over 1 million men. German generals found him difficult to assess because he was difficult to see. Bradley didn't seek publicity like Clark, didn't cultivate eccentricity like Patton, didn't demand attention like Montgomery. He simply commanded. Rundstedt called Bradley competent and methodical. High praise from a Prussian field marshal, but not dramatic praise. Bradley was professional, reliable, exactly what you'd expect an American general to be. This made him dangerous in a different way. He wouldn't take insane risks. But he wouldn't make mistakes either. He would apply pressure steadily, relentlessly, until something broke. But German generals didn't fear Bradley the way they feared others. They respected him. They didn't lose sleep over him. Courtney Hodges commanded First Army, fought more Germans than almost any other Allied commander. Most Germans couldn't remember his name. This was the paradox of American power. German generals spent years fighting First Army, bled against it at Normandy, broke against it at Aachen, died against it in the Hurtgen Forest. But when asked about Hodges specifically, they struggled to describe him. They remembered the army, not the man. Von Manteuffel's assessment was chilling. The Americans fought like a machine, relentless, impersonal, unstoppable. First Army had unlimited ammunition, air superiority, replacement troops, replacement tanks, replacement everything. When one American unit was destroyed, another appeared to take its place. German generals had spent years studying individual commanders, looking for weaknesses. Against the American machine, individual weaknesses didn't matter. You can't defeat a factory by killing its foreman. This brought a specific kind of despair to the German front line. You can outsmart a man. You can trick a general. You cannot outsmart a tidal wave of steel. This terrified them more than any single general, not Patton, not Montgomery. The American industrial machine was inevitable, and then there was Patton. German intelligence ignored him before D-Day. Didn't profile him, didn't track him. Assumed he'd been sidelined after the slapping scandal. They learned their mistake in August 1944. Patton's Third Army broke out of Normandy and covered 400 miles in 2 weeks. German commanders couldn't believe the reports. No army moved that fast. Their maps were obsolete within hours of being drawn. Rundstedt's assessment changed immediately. Patton was your best, not one of your best. Jodl compared Patton to Guderian, the father of German armored warfare. Kesselring said Patton had developed tank warfare into an art and compared him to Rommel. Coming from the commander who'd fought both men, this was the highest compliment possible. But what changed German perception was the Battle of the Bulge. German planners calculated American forces would need 2 weeks to respond to the Ardennes offensive. Patton turned 3 divisions 90 degrees and began his attack in 48 hours. Von Manteuffel received the reports and couldn't comprehend what he was reading. An entire army had moved 100 miles through winter storms in 2 days. Imagine the panic in the German command bunker. The map said they were safe. The math said they had time. And then through the snow and fog came the roar of thousands of Sherman engines where silence should have been. After that, German generals stopped underestimating Patton. They'd learned what happened when you assumed the gladiator was just another soldier. But Patton wasn't the only American who terrified German commanders. Lucien Truscott never achieved Patton's fame. Never commanded an army group. never made magazine covers or Hollywood movies. German generals in Italy feared him more than anyone except Patton himself. Truscott believed in a marching standard known as the Truscott Trot. His units trained to march faster than doctrine allowed. They attacked before defenders expected, exploited gaps before the enemy could react. It was a pace that blistered feet and broke men. But Truscott knew the grim math of war. Sweat saves blood. Move faster than the enemy can think, you win. Slow down, you die. After the war, when German generals listed Allied commanders who genuinely concerned them, Truscott's name appeared alongside Patton. Not Montgomery, not Bradley. Not the Clark. Professionals recognized a professional. Truscott was the hidden blade the public never learned to fear. In the end, German generals ranked Allied commanders by one simple standard. Who kept them awake at night? Speed killed. Aggression killed. Predictability saved lives. And in the future they saw coming, there was no place for the Wehrmacht.